This is an interesting musical tidbit. So apparently Christopher Cross turned down playing on the Steely Dan record. Maybe he had heard about what Mark Knopfler went through. They're very meticulous, especially the way Donald Fagen and the structuring and the way they go over this and that and the other. So maybe Steely Dan records are not for the faint of heart in terms of styling because you really don't put them in a box. The musicality is a bit of everything, even though Donald Fagen did not want it to be classified yacht rock, but they fit into an interesting hybrid of music. So, where would you fit in? But I remember, I want to say Glamour Profession, I want to say Mark Knopfler. He played guitar on the track. And I remember that solo because it was kind of odd, the way it was kind of like a wing being spread out. I remember the tone, the way it hit. And I remember, I think, Patty Austin's vocals and the way it was played over it. So it's the way that they would mix and match the music and put the stylings together. But I think after Christopher Cross Ride Like the Wind, which was a tight solo, we know how tight his record came up. And it also could be because of the Michael McDonald Association. Let's remember, Michael McDonald was the hook man, and he did a lot of hooks from Steely Dan for Peg and others. And so him and Faye, all that. So it's all connected. But when I hear like the music for Never Be the Same, that would have sounded good on the Steely Dan record. Christopher Cross had a couple songs like Never Be the Same. And when you hear Arthur's theme, it's the chorus and the arrangement, which would not have sounded out of place on a Steely Dan record. So listening to it in hindsight, I could hear that. I could hear that. But the word was he was kind of intimidated by playing with them on their record because they do carry crazy weight as musicians, especially with the way they could get the stylings that they could get out of the musicianship that they brought. When you brought Bernard Purdie, and they remember they had Joe Sample on a Ja album. They had a lot of people that would come through. Jeff Baxter, who used to, the long-haired cat who played guitar on the Doobie Brothers and played with Steely Dan, all that. You hear all those those musicians and you hear the standards, and so it's like, okay, how do we? And Walter Becker knew how to craft a lot of, especially on guitar, he knew how to craft a lot musically as a producer in his ears, and of course Donald Fagen. So when you are in that hybrid, in that channel, they're definitely challenging you, and they're using you in spaces and places. So it was definitely a chess match. There's no checkers with that. So interestingly, to read that he turned them down, and I'm sure that there are a lot of different acts that would have sounded good with that Steely Dan, especially the Gary